I can't believe today was a good day.
What's going on YouTube? This is going to be a video about my Century Arms VSKA, or some would pronounce it VSKA, others have pronounced it VSKA. I think VSKA is a little bit more fun, sounds kind of Russian, despite this being a domestically produced AK style rifle according to the Century Arms manual. The line of Century-made AKs, not their imports such as the Wassers and various others like the early days of the NPAPs and things like that, but their actual in-house produced AKs such as the RAS 47, C39, the VSKA here, as well as the BFT, sort of have a little bit of controversy, muddied past, so to speak. The early iterations of their AKs had some cast parts that would incur catastrophic failure. Supposedly, the updated VSKAs and BFTs have somewhat remedied those problems. One of the difficult things is actually getting clear information when it comes to these rifles. If you're on YouTube, there's quite a few large channels, and then kind of a smaller but still pretty large channel that cover round counts with their VSKAs going upwards of 6,000 to 7,000 rounds. Brandon Herrera and Mr. Guns and Gear, I believe, have got to 6,000, and then they did a teardown video. I think AK Operators Union went to about 5,000 rounds. There's a channel out there called Chemo 365. I'm not sure if there's any inflection or emphasis on letters within that, but it looks like it's spelled chemo, like Kemosabe or something. And then there's also the Oregon channel, Ori Gear, which he got to, I believe, either 3,000 or 5,000 rounds. However, for individuals who may find themselves in ownership of these, when you go onto forums, it's very difficult to sift through a lot of the stuff, on various forums, because people are going to provide their 2 cents, and, for good reason. I want to say first and foremost, I'm not defending these rifles. I'm not trying to make a video here stating that these are just as good as, or that they're any kind of, quality above what people may or may not say online about them. However, what I found to be difficult is to get an actual answer, because most of the time people are going to throw their 2 cents in, just fucking throw it out there and bash on it. However, if a company like Century Arms, despite, some of the muddied past, has willingly gone and tried to update the current line of offerings to at least stand up to I would say moderate use, perhaps not for the AK aficionados that are out there, but perhaps for the everyday man, perhaps for somebody on a budget or something of that nature. If they have updated it and they are trying to progress and produce something, still commercially available, budget friendly, well, then I would like to take a chance on that. So the reason I'm making this video is for the individuals that may find themselves in ownership of one of these, and their first thing to do is they're going to look up videos on YouTube as well as go to various forums. And if you go on forums, it looks, these have the same kind of stigma that like IO Inc. or the early days of Pioneer, or, the RAS 47s, where they're going to tell you that the whole thing's going to explode, it's going to lose headspace and everything like that. However, there are actual proven videos that have covered higher round counts, and so that's what becomes a little bit difficult is finding what's genuine. There's also individuals making claims that they know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who had a rifle explode, and then there's other people that will also kind of bend the truth and claim that they have 3,000 or 5,000 rounds themselves, but we can't actually figure any of that out or take it at face value. So what I'm doing here is I was able to obtain this for an insanely good deal. Basically take the street price, which is going to be much lower than their MSRP, and cut that in half. And now you're talking cheaper than any AK. I mean, almost reminiscent to the Wasser 10 prices of 15 years ago or so. So very, very cheap. And this is brand spanking new. This has not been fired at all, so I'm starting with a virgin rifle. I double checked everything on the inside. I mean, there were no marks. In fact, the hammer was completely untouched until I started racking the action, and then I was the one that caused the finish wear on top of the hammer. So I mean, it is brand spanking new. Goal here with the series of videos for this is for anybody that perhaps this is one of the things that I want to address when it comes to people on forums is sometimes there are people within states where, as we've seen over the last couple of years, anti-gun legislation drops. And when that curtain falls, basically a lot of online retailers do not sell to those states because they don't know if something's going to be stuck halfway and then get turned back by the FFL, and it's just this logistics nightmare. They end up losing money on that. I mean, they'll obviously charge a restocking fee to the poor individual, but a lot of times, as seen in my state, even though our anti-gun legislation is currently on pause because it's still going through the courts, there was a point in time where they just ceased everything because they didn't know, and you can't blame them because they're trying to stay on the good side of the law, and I mean, it just becomes this huge legal nightmare for them. So I understand why they do it, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it. However, there are individuals in multiple states over the last couple of years where anti-gun legislation came down and they couldn't buy things online, and perhaps all they could get was something that was on the gun shelves at their local gun store, be it big box or the brick and mortar mom and pops, FFLs. Individuals like that are probably not hip to the AK lineage and AK market and all the ins and outs and what to look for and what to buy and everything like that. Sometimes you got what you got. Other times, fathers, brothers, uncles will gift somebody something, and let's say they, again, don't know too much about AKs, and you find yourself in ownership of this. The first thing you'll do is possibly check those YouTube videos and those forums. And what I'd like to do is sift through a bunch of that bullshit, and instead of just throwing out uninformed opinion because I heard somebody who heard somebody say something about it, I would rather document this and provide an actual, data point for individuals. Now, again, there's other much larger channels that have covered this, but just being an everyday man, I would like to kind of come at it with my own angle and just show you either the good or the bad. Now, if this thing shits the bed, at least you'll see it. And for its low price point, right now, AKs are kind of in my crosshairs and they have my focus. So I'm getting into more of the fun AK projects and things. Obviously like that. Not building any, but I mean, in terms of acquiring them, tricking them out, just going out and shooting with them primarily over a lot of the other rifles that I own. That's kind of something that I'm focused on currently. With this, my goal, unlike the RDB, which I still truly do enjoy, it's just that I shot enough now to know that I like it. It works. I mean, I'm not going to put 10,000 rounds through it, but I like it enough to where I stuck that in the safe because I know it's going to work when I take it out. I had intended on taking that out consistently, and I was for a while, but after a little bit, I was like, all right, this is going to work okay for me. I've heard the same kind of stories about those breaking, and I'm sure they do. I mean, there's a lot of plastic on it. I've heard things with firing pins and whatnot, but at the same time, it proved itself enough for me, so I just tucked it away, and I'll bring it out occasionally, and record that. But anyway, with something like this over 2026, I want to try and attempt to, again, out of my own pocket, because I pay for my shit myself. There's no, whack-ass Patreon e-begging nonsense. I want to try and put as many rounds as I can afford at the time. Again, shooting my other rifles, but primarily through this one as well. I want to test accuracy. I want to monitor the internal wear. I will be shooting that alongside my PSA AK and doing the same exact thing. I believe the internals of my PSA rifle are pretty okay, despite being, sub 1,000, I think I forgot what the round count was. I got to check my logs, but not super high volume yet. Slight wear, but as those things wear in, I'm not terribly worried. I don't see anything catastrophic starting to occur, but I'm going to shoot that in tandem with this and monitor both the internals, their accuracy and things like that. But anyway, back to this rifle. The VSKAs are a little interesting. So obviously, as I mentioned before, domestically produced. These are not an import. These are made here in the United States. The specs on the receiver portion are perhaps perhaps maybe it's the rear sight, are slightly different. This is highlighted by the different Texas Weapon Systems rail system that they have for sale. You cannot use the standard stamped version on it, and I haven't dug into, because again this is a recent acquirement of mine, I haven't dug into just why the differences are there. They've yet to email me back over the course of this week, but anyhow, it does differ slightly, and I can understand that would be a thing, just dependent on, again, it's the rear sight here, and then possibly the receiver being wider or longer, something of that nature. I'll eventually, dig into that information and find out exactly why. But for the most part, everything else fits. So your furniture from standard stamped AKMs is going to go ahead and fit inside of the of this rifle. Grips, same kind of thing. Initially, when you get these, at least with the wood models, you'll get basically this all decked out. So you have the wood lower forearm, upper hand guard, and then the stock. They also sell a synthetic model and then a kind of like paratrooper style of model. And the MSRP on these is really the just absolutely laughable portion about them. Century Arms values the wood versions at about 950 chicken nuggets, which realistically has a street price of, I've seen them as low as 399 chicken nuggets up to 700 chicken nuggets. If we're getting towards that 700 range, there are better options. However, if you find this for about 550 and change or less, at that point, that's what I'm trying to kind of sift through and prove if this can be an affordable option at that price point. Again, $500, 500 chicken nuggets or less. Should this be something that the everyday average income person can afford and shoot and not have to worry about any kind of catastrophic damage or failures or anything like that? The synthetic model is basically the same exact thing under the hood. It just has the synthetic stock and upper and lower forearms. That is a little bit cheaper than the wood, so it saves you like 100 some odd chicken nuggets in total. So I think those sell for like 820 chicken nuggets, and then again it has a street price roughly the same. Once these get on the street, they're about the same. I believe I saw it was like 399 chicken nuggets up to, I want to say it was like 680, maybe 700 chicken nuggets. Again, shipping and background check fees and everything like that excluded. The para model that they have, or the tactical model, I could not find the old MSRP, as they were a limited run from Century Arms, supposedly. But the street price, which are currently in stock online at various retailers, hover around 630 chicken nuggets to about, I think it's like 670 chicken nuggets. So again, affordable, and it's the action and the parts should be the same. The para model has the recessed front sight post, like a triangle stock or something of that nature, but it buttons into the receiver just like a standard stock, so you could swap that out or whatever. It's just that the front end kind of differs in terms of the sight and the extra barrel length out front, but still I believe it's like a 16.25 inch barrel or something of that nature. I haven't looked at the specs on the para model in depth, but anyway, I mean, fucking use Google, goddammit, I don't give a shit. Anyhow, with this, mine came with the wood handguard here, and as you guys can notice, the staining, they call this red. This motherfucker's pink. This is straight up fucking pink. I mean, under actual light, it's fucking pink. It is cut for a cleaning rod, which is interesting. So from a mass-produced area, however, as you can see here, there is no bayonet lug or cleaning rod lug under the barrel. The other thing about this rifle is these do not come with a side rail scope mount. Now, I thought I saw a post or two where somebody had mentioned that theirs did, but I didn't, again, investigate further because that doesn't apply to mine whatsoever. And Google's your friend. You can fucking look that up. To my knowledge, AK Master Mount has an updated version where it uses the trigger pins here and plugs in on the back side, and then that gives you a side rail scope mount to rock whatever you need. Apparently there's the middle rivet area gets in the way of it, and so they have updated that to have like a little cutout for this to mount flush. The other optics mounting options would be the dedicated Texas Weapon Systems model. You could always go with an Ultimac, you can go with a rear sight, like RMR plate or Picatinny rail or something like that. And then there's other stuff that you can plug in. I mean, there's a variety of ways you can get an optic mounted on here. I'm not sure I'm going to throw a ton of money at that. I initially thought with the existing Texas Weapon Systems rail that I had, that I could just slap it on here. I haven't done any test fitting, but just from my readings, it mentioned that they have their own dedicated version. So I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But I have another AK coming down the line that I'm going to be mounting that on. So no big deal. So I want to take this out with the irons and see what its accuracy, is capable of, at least with my particular rifle. I've heard some people make reports that theirs are fairly accurate, again, for an AK. And then I've heard others that said that theirs was a little bit off. To my knowledge, the reports on the barrel are fairly good. I don't think it's a dog shit barrel. Just with the type of steel and its rifling, apparently that is pretty decent. One of the main things that I think people pointed out in the earlier models, as well as like the RAS 47, is potentially a walking barrel pin here, and that would then create a headspace issue inside here. So one of the primary suggestions on most forums is, if you're going to have one of these rifles, perhaps invest in a go and no-go gauge set. I know they're a little pricey. They hover around $60 up to like $100 some odd dollars or something like that. But if you have this rifle, that may be a worthwhile investment just to make sure you're monitoring what's going on. Kind of like feeler gauges if you have a roller lock rifle. It's just worthwhile having some tool like that to keep on it and check it and track it, just to make sure that everything's within spec. So in addition to the furniture, these also, again, were applicable. These typically ship out with the US Palm range style of magazines, and those are typically non-reinforced. They still have the molding holes as if you had a cage in there. However, there is a non-reinforced, just polymer feed lip section, non-reinforced front lug and rear lug here. These, nothing special to write home about. They're okay. I wouldn't go gung-ho on buying strictly these types of mags. However, the one that comes with it is just fine. These feed very well. They have the kind of their own... It's basically what they're known for, is this kind of not permanently fixed, but this fixed base plate here. This is not meant to be taken off. In fact, if you get debris in here, what they advise is running water in there and then shaking it out. However, in a pinch, I have seen people remove the base plate here. It's just not designed for that. But anyway, not terribly bad magazines. Obviously, the non-reinforced versions are meant to keep the costs down when it comes to providing an AK magazine with these guys. And back to the rifle itself, my rifle here, these typically come installed with a US Palms style of grip. These are actually fantastic grips. To me, they're very comfortable. Some people don't like the aesthetic of them. Some people also do not like the feel of them. I don't have the world's largest hands for being 6'6", but I have very big, fat fucking hands. And so for me, it's a very comfortable grip. It just, however, it just didn't match what else came with the rifle. So I also received a Magpul pistol grip and the Magpul AK MOE style of forearm there. I was going to, let me see, just like on my M92, I had a spare TDI rail that I had planned on mounting on this, but this actually served the purpose that I was after, having a M-lock cutout. And I wasn't quite sure, because admittedly I do not have any of the front end Magpul furniture. I also received the top cover that matches this as well, but I figured I'd just go with the contrast of the pink wood, red wood, and the Magpul furniture, since these were already mounted. But anyhow, I was after a forearm set that had the M-lock slots, and primarily because I'm currently working on many batches of what I have coined the baby Bakelite front foregrips, or mini foregrips, or hand stops, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Again, I don't give a shit. But anyhow, I have a lot of these Gen 1s that I went with, where I cut them by hand roughly with hand saws, and it created these gaps. So I used color fill adhesive. I was playing around with different colors and stuff, and obviously this one doesn't match, so I'm not going to sell this one. But I was also utilizing opening up the heel or boot of the grips themselves to be able to utilize M6 hardware to mount to the AK M-lock studs that I'm currently using. But anyhow, since these are a little bit rough, I'm just mounting these on a lot of the various AKs that I have, because I went through that whole sequence of trial and error. And now, as I mentioned before, I have the kind of cleaner cut furniture, you're always going to have this cut line, but much thinner cuts that I'm doing now, and I no longer have to modify the boot or heel of the grip, as I am making cut down custom hardware for the exact length of these grips, so that you can have a shorter actual AK grip screw come with that. And so what I'm currently doing is color matching and taking existing Bakelite style grips and having a rear and a forward grip that match in color, while one is chopped down and the other is standard. So that's what you'd be getting out of that, plus the two AK grip screws. I don't think I'm going to entertain a whole lot of the AK mounting hardware for M-LOK. What is it? RS Regulate or whatever sells their little 45 chicken nugget one. Did have something in the works. I was talking to a few CNC machine shops, and then I was also talking to somebody over in China about manufacturing some, but the order amount would have to be higher than what I really want to I really want to entertain. So I'm not currently doing that just yet, but I have found a awesome AK mounting solution that I'm more than happy to share with folks that want to try and mount some of these foregrips onto their M-LOK systems. I haven't found anything viable yet for like Keymod or Picatinny. I have a couple of things in development, but they're just a little bit janky. What I'm currently using works really well and mounts flush. So I have one of these on my 7.62x39 Bear Creek Arsenal upper. I have it on this one. I'll have another set mounted on my PSA 103 that's coming down the line. There was actually just the other day a fantastic video put out there by M26 Lemon Grenade, and he talked about the cut corners that PSA is engaged in when it comes to the rivets. And that's something that actually definitely matters when it comes to these rifles as well. Is one, you have the material issues in terms of like the metallurgy of the rifle itself. But when he talks about the rivets, this could also lend itself to the loosening of the entire trunnion with these, creating that headspace issue. So that may be something to look at, hence why a go, no-go gauge may be necessary. But his video is fantastic. It actually mentions just why very specific rivet types and sizes are necessary in AKs, and why one thing is more effective than what like PSA is doing. And so I'm unsure what the data package is on the Century Arms AKs. That would actually be fascinating if somebody wanted to comment down below if they actually know for sure what type of rivets the Century Arms AKs are using and kind of their process. That would be kind of neat. Again, neither here nor there, but he definitely makes some solid points when it comes to AKs that are of quality versus the cut corner US made, produced AKs such as, the Century Arms or the PSA or a couple of others. There's also some shitty imported ones as well, but for the most part, I'm just talking about this. With the project here, again, this is not a defense of this rifle. I have no idea what the quality is going to be like. I don't know what the accuracy is going to be like. I have not fired this yet. I'm waiting for the next range day where I can go out there. I got my ammo set, got this thing set up, so I just want to take this out and have a little bit of fun. But I do want this to be a data point for, again, anybody that may find themselves in ownership of one of these. And one of the other common lines of consensus on various forums is, well, if you own one of these, just sell it and buy, X, Y, or Z, buy a Wasser or buy a Zastava or something. And the problem is all that does is it just kicks the can down the road. If let's say I'm new to guns, or I'm, a novice with firearms, or not firearms, but with AKs, and I take the words on those forums to heart, I'm going to trade this in. I'm going to take a massive loss, anywhere from 60, sometimes 80%, depending on your FFL or pawn shop or whatever, and utilize the minimal funds that I did spend on this on another rifle that, yes, will be of better quality, but then the next guy in line ends up getting a hold of this and he doesn't know what he's got, and the cycle continues. So if we can prove that this at least would be a viable option for the average to below average volume, weekend plinking, just average income shooter that's not burning 500 to 1,000 rounds per range session. And to be honest, with the current AK ammunition prices, I don't think anybody's really dropping 500 to 1,000 rounds per range session anymore. It's far more costly than it used to be. And again, I started out with AKs long ago. I'm not heavily technically into them in terms of like the rivet types and the wood grain of the furniture and shit like that. But I've been around the block enough to at least memorize a lot of the price points that I used to be able to obtain things for versus what we have now. It's very easy to go and really burn down an AK back in the day, and now it's very costly. So again, my ammo pacing is basically going to cover the usage of this just as an everyday man, average guy going out plinking, and I want to monitor any of the damage or early premature wear that takes place in this rifle, and just kind of convey that online so that people can at least see my perspective. Something where I'm not getting funded by anybody, I'm not getting influenced by anybody. This was bought by with my own money, and as will the ammunition, and it's going to be expended at my own leisure. So it's whenever I have the ability to go out and take it out. However, I will make this a priority to take it out at least every other range trip, and just document everything, both the ammunition type. So I know case differences really shouldn't make a difference. However, I still want to document, be it steel case or brass. I don't think I'm going to really keep track of the grain. I don't really give a fuck about that. That's not going to make a difference since we're not really hyper focusing on the accuracy. I'm more after just parts wear and how long this thing is going to last. There is hope for these. I don't know if those were hand selected by Century Arms when they were doled out to these larger channels, or if they just got one off the rack and they can all supposedly withstand 7,000, 10,000 rounds. I do understand that obviously an AK of quality, 5,000 rounds, the party's just getting started. Everything's finally worn in, and it should keep trucking past that. However, again, looking at the economic standpoint or realistic economic standpoint of that much ammunition, regularly being shot and actually getting up to like 60,000 rounds just on one particular rifle, I don't really know how practical that is for the average everyday person. It may be, if your budget's huge and or if you have one dedicated rifle and you just shoot the piss out of yours, that's great. That's wonderful. I fully support that. But, again, this video would be more for anybody that just already currently owns this and they're just looking for any fucking information. They just want to know that what they got's going to last at least enough for their purposes. That being said, I would never fucking pay the MSRP for this. I would only pay for about 500 chicken nuggets or less. Maybe 6 if the ban curtain's about to drop in your state. But for the most part, yeah, I'm not I'm not too keen on spending the MSRP or suggested price for the Century Arms VSKAs here. Just close to 900 some odd chicken nuggets is it's absolutely insane to me, because you could actually buy a decent rifle. So my first suggestion would be is, obviously, if you have the coin and there's no time frame that you have to purchase an AK, yes, save and buy something better. Again, this video is not to try and encourage you to buy this. I cannot iterate that enough. It's for people who maybe they just want some budget gun. They found this for a good price. Maybe they were gifted it. Maybe they bought it not knowing, and now they're freaking out and they're looking for any kind of data online. That's what this is for. I'm not a huge fan of just trading things in, as again, the conflicting data with these is they may actually last a long time. They may not. That's the hard thing to tell. Same thing would go for PSA AKs. Some people claim that within 250 rounds they suffered or sustained catastrophic damage inside of the with the core parts and stuff like that. But if you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them below. I don't check my channel often. However, when I do, I will try and get back to absolutely everybody. I appreciate truly every view. It's cool that people fuck with my shit, but I just like posting my shit that I own, and I just like information. So that's kind of what I'm after with this series of videos that'll be coming out all through 2026, just as time kind of goes by. But other than that, I'll catch you guys next time.